start your slides and so forth?
I can do that.
Okay. We might have been the expert on catching them, but he's the expert on making it. All right, buddy.
I'm going to show you some slides of the big steel that we rated in January 6, 1993. But before that, I'm just going to run through and show you what all the apparatus is and what it looks like, so when you look at it, you know what you're looking at. But anyway, this first slide is a black pot steel. That was taken in 2014, so that wasn't too long ago. The black pot is generally wood, rough sawn wood on the side and sheet metal on top and bottom. A lot of nails. The bottom will have two sheets because that's where the heat is. If you look at that pot, it's sitting on a cinder block furnace, and what they do is slide a burner, homemade burner under that with. Yeah. They'll put a burner underneath that pot and heat it generally with LP gas, but I have seen them use diesel fuel with house furnace heaters. But anyway, that's how it's heated.
Except this one, and is that heating elements?
Yeah, that's yeah. They were heated that way, but most of them are heated by gas. The 100-pound cylinders that they usually get, I always had a problem with it because the moonshiner was getting it filled for like $30, and it cost me $100 if I went and got it.
We're using hundreds of them a week.
Yeah. I actually investigated one steel with a local oil company bulk truck came out and filled them up right at steel site.
A lot of
The slide you see there is of a copper cap. The cap is used to trap the steam that comes off the steel once the distillation process is started. And the copper pipes you see next to them are called connecting arms. That connects the cap to the either the doubler and also used for the condensing valve. That's a coil, copper coil that sits in the cooling box. It's turned copper. I've been told that they actually use that tubing. They turn it with sand to keep it from crimping. The wood holds it together. It sits down in the box, and it'll be lashed to cinder blocks to keep it from floating when the cooling box fills up with water.
Buddy?
Yeah.
Henry said it would cost about $700-800 to make a call like that.
every bit of it.
Copper tube. Yeah, it's not cheap. That's the coil actually sitting in the cooling box. As I said before, you had to have a continuous supply of cold running water to keep the condensation process going. So the steel was always near a water source, and the water would heat up in that box and overflow naturally, and the hot water comes to the top and the cold water stays in the bottom. So it kept the process going. And if you look down in there, you can see the cinder blocks tied to it to keep that coal from floating. That's a doubler. To the right of it at the top is where the steam would come out of the steel from the cap, and the PVC coming out on the left would actually go into the cooling box. That is a proofing barrel. If you look at the two sticks at the top with the 5-gallon bucket, that's where they dump the liquor from the catch bucket. You can see the garden hose down at the bottom, hooked on the side. They actually bring that garden hose down and jug it up 1 gallon at a time. That's two other kinds of proofing barrels, 55-gallon barrels. You look at the one on the right, you can see the two buckets at the top where they dump the liquor in. The buckets that I was talking about, you can see the rocks and the cotton in the bottom of it, and that's how they purify it. Jugging up your liquor, they would buy gallon milk jugs in bales. There's 48 in the bale. And there was actually a place, I believe it was in Madison, North Carolina, that they actually bought these jugs from because they were thicker than a cider jug or a milk jug, because the liquor obviously would have a tendency to eat through a regular jug. But they would buy hundreds of those bales. That's a stack of bales in a tobacco barn next to a still. There was a supply house in Rocky Mount, Farmer Supply, and he had his warehouse out on Route 40, and he would bring in thousands of those bales.
Like you were saying, it had to be thick because a lot of times when we stored it, we'd have to stack 2 or 3 jugs on top of each other. You got these thin ones,
Wait.
you'd lose. Yeah, you'd lose.
Wait. Sugar, generally bought in 100-pound bags. This particular sugar is Dixie Crystals. I guess the most I ever saw on a 2-ton cattle truck was about 170 bags. And that had 9 tons of sugar in the car.
On this sugar situation, we were doing an investigation on Big Oak Headache Class, so we sent an agent down to Dixie Crystal, down in Savannah, Georgia. That's where it's made. And we talked to the manager down there at Dixie Crystal. And we asked him about the sugar coming to Franklin County. And he laughed and he said, second biggest customer we've got.
That is true. I remember it. That's Jack Frost sugar. That's a 2-ton cattle truck, and that's not 170 bags, but it's probably well over 100. I've had the misfortune of trying to unload a truck like that once or twice, and
Where is that made at? Do you know?
I don't know what Jack Frost is made, but that particular truck was in Craig County.
Craig County.
One down the big stick
Mm-hmm.
over here. The truck was back in that load.
Yeah, but I'm not much bigger than a 100-pound bag of sugar, and unloading that truck will wear you out.
Sometimes we had to switch 2 or 3 tons, 5,000 or 6,000 pounds of sugar. We'd have it on a truck like that, and then we'd have to put it on our vehicle. We were going across the road on. Then we got to Stills site. We couldn't get in with a regular pickup truck, so we'd have to switch again to a 4-wheel drive Willis Jeep, and then drive it into Stills site, and then unload it again, put it in the subs, and then the next day we had to do the same thing right over again. It was a job, one hell of a job.
I've actually witnessed a couple of moonshiners pick up 2 bags at one time, one over each shoulder, and haul it into the site. So.
My dad wrecked a truck one time. Wheel flew off of it, had 100 bags on it from Route 40. Scattered the whole highway with it. We went down with some shovels. I think we got 80 bags of it shoveled up. Y'all tried to follow us because you knew where it was going.
Right. Florida Crystals, again, 100-pound bags. John was talking about Lewis Ayers. I was shopping in Sam's Club in Lynchburg years ago, and I ran into Lewis, and he was in Sam's Club. And Lewis was littler than I am. And he had his wife with him, and he had 600-pound bags of sugar in his car in Sam's Club. And he saw me, he knew who I was, and he just kind of walked away, and he made his wife push the sugar out and put it in the minivan and take it back to Pennsylvania County. But he had 13 children. I think that's what finally killed him. Talking about the mash. That's what it looks like once they mash it in. It's amber in color, beerish looking. Again, when it's fermenting, it'll actually appear to be boiling and hissing. And once that clears off, then they're ready to go and start the distillation process. Water supply. got to have a constant cold water, in this case a gas-powered water pump on the creek with a gas can next to it. Coming through the woods, you always listen for the pump. It'll give you an indication that the still's in operation, and also the roar of the gas burner. It sounds like a jet in the woods. In this case, electrical submergible pump in the creek. Again, pumping water up to, that was in a building, inside a building in Henry County. Finished product. The jugs are sugar liquor. The jars on the right, in this particular case, were marked. They had peach brandy, blackberry brandy, and cherry brandy. And that was probably 400 or 500 gallons of sugar liquor and probably 200 gallons of brandy. It was in a little abandoned schoolhouse in a place called Wright, Virginia, Leesville Lake. That's the brandy. For some reason, I never saw a lot of brandy in the jugs. They always put it in half-gallon mason jars, which is quite expensive.
Not better.
A lot better tasting.
Yeah, all I pay for pound of rum is gallon jug.
Right.
Oh,
Vinegar jars. Yeah.
And use jug, gallon jug.
Right.
How much did that sell for, buddy?
$75 was for a half-gallon mason jar of brandy when I was working, and sugar liquor was like
We sell $125 a case, 6 gallons.
Yeah.
That'll bring whatever you want to get for it.
That's some more finished product there. That's probably the largest stash I ever saw. There was 3,000 gallons in that garage of sugar liquor, and I always liked the slide because I like the Chevelle. I think it's a 69 Chevelle.
But was that Hillman Lawrence?
No, that was Stuart Atkins.
Oh, Stuart's a good friend of mine.
That was in Stuart's mother's garage in Franklin County. That's some more finished product there. That's probably the largest stash I ever saw. There was 3,000 gallons in that garage of sugar liquor, and I always liked the slide because I like the Chevelle. I think it's a 69 Chevelle.
But was that Hillman Lawrence?
No, that was Stuart Atkins.
Oh, Stuart's a good friend of mine.
That was in Stuart's mother's garage in Franklin County. Okay, we're going to talk about the big still. I took this shot from up in McLean, obviously. So I was flying with the state police after we raided it to get a little look at what was going on. This started in December of '92, and we had information from a complaint of people at a place called Lumpkin's Marina, which is on Smith Mountain Lake on the Pennsylvania County side, Kentucky, Virginia. And the complaint was they kept smelling mash. And we went down there and we smelled the mash, but we never could find the still. We walked for weeks, never could find anything. But this particular house is right before you get to the dead end of 626 off of Route 40, right before you get to Lumpkin's Marina. We're probably not a quarter mile from Smith Mountain Lake at that time. And it was a gated driveway, and the pond down there in the lower right was where they were getting their water source. There was 2 submersible pumps in the corner of that pond, and they had dug underground all the way up to where the steel was. Steel is right here in this building. That building's 90 feet by 40 feet. This is a road up to it. This is the house where the violators live, and this is a pond. Right here is where the submersible pumps were, and you turn the power on in the house. That's another view of the building. The building appeared to be new. The rafters were new. The tin and everything on it was new. It probably had been there no more than a year. Inside the steel, there's 36 pots. You'll see when you look at the display over here how it was spread out, but it was literally jammed full of it. They had 3 cooling boxes and double hookups on each. They could run 6 of the 36 stills at one time. The information that we had, like I said, it took several weeks, and once we finally found it, we put it under surveillance probably for 2 weeks, walking in every day. We would get dropped off at the beginning of 626 and walking across Smith Mountain and coming in behind it, kind of looking down on it from the bird's eye point of view, and just watching for activity for about 12 hours and then hiking back out.
Henry, how much would it cost to set up an outfit like that?
There's no telling now. It is no telling.
A lot.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. I knew those guys. They was from Franklin County. It's called Pennsylvania County, but the Franklin County guys set it up.
Well, we're not too far from Franklin.
Right on the line.
Yeah. But inside, each pot had you'll see over there on display, each pot had a number on it, 1 through 36. So they could keep up with what was going on. And every one of those pots were mashed in at the time we raided it. There was so much mash, normally we cut a pot and let it run on the ground, but in this case, if we had done that, we would have probably killed half the fish in Smith Mountain Lake. So we had to get sewage treatment trucks. I guess we had close to a dozen of them, pump every one of those stills out, and we took all the mash to the water treatment plant in Danville, Virginia.
A buddy of mine worked that place when we first set it up, and he said it did in shifts. It was three different groups of them. He would go in and run 12, and then be another group come in and run 12, and another group come in and run 12. He had quit long before y'all got on to it and called him. That's Massie.
That's a sewage treatment truck pumping one of the stills in.
Just the propane tanks alone, 36 pots. You figure 2 tanks to each pot of those 100 gallons a week. That's all the propane.
Yeah.
This is a picture I took of that display in '93, shortly after it was made. It looks a lot newer than it does now. Anyway, if you look, these are the cooling boxes right here. They had 3 hookups, and the proofing barrels are right here, gas tanks. I can't remember, I think I got it written down somewhere, but it took like 26,000 pounds of sugar a week to run this thing. So you had to have a lot of cash flow. You know, you didn't write a check for the sugar. You didn't put it on your credit card. So, you know, when they delivered it, they wanted cash money.
Big cash.
Yeah.
It would take weeks to build all those stills.
That was the headlines in the Richmond Times-Dispatch the next day on the largest still in Virginia. It was rated. It was when we brought the media in, it was just a publicity circus at that point. And it took us all day. In fact, we had to leave some agents there overnight. We couldn't process the crime scene in one day. We spent several days there before we finally got it all cleaned up. We charged one person that was living in the house. He was convicted about a year later in federal court and got 5 years.
He was used to buy the materials for the building, and he was used to lease the house out in his name. The guy that owned that place was never caught.
Right.
He was never captured, never caught.
The search warrant on the house, we found it rolled up $100 bills, smoking coke, a bunch of marijuana, guns. He was convicted of other things besides making liquor. He had drug charges, gun charges.
That's where he made some mistake. I heard he was taking women there and
Yeah, it was
drugs and everything else. You know, you don't do that.
The still you're looking at now was a peach brandy still. It was also in Pennsylvania County on Turkey Cock Creek near the Franklin County line. This is a steamer. This is completely different from the black pot operation. This is just an oil drum laying on the side on a cinder block furnace and burners right here, and they're heating water in here, and the steam is coming out into these two pipes into this stainless steel. I was talking to Henry, and he said probably hold about 200 gallons.
I own that steel now. Got it.
Right here is, you can see there's some tar paper and plastic here. Right in front of this steel was 100 55-gallon barrels full of crushed peaches. 100. At the time we found this was in July, and we had to walk in and check it for 30 consecutive days before we finally caught it in operation. That's another shot of the steel. You can see the tar paper over those barrels there in the lower right corner. That's what it looked like through the woods. As you can tell, it's really hard to pick it up, but here's the steel right here, looking through the woods, and these are the barrels covered up with the tar paper. If you were walking in the woods and didn't come very close to it, you'd walk right past it.
How many days did you check that?
It was about 30 consecutive days. That's the barrels before we uncovered them. It was covered with tar paper and had pieces of wood on top of it to hold the tar paper down. But they were sitting right next to the steel. That is the thumper keg and the cooler box. Thumper keg's right here. These are the barrels. This is the cooler box, and they were heating with those are LP gas. So.
That brandy, peach brandy, if you didn't know somebody, you never got any of it.
No.
You never got any of it. You had to know somebody to get that brandy. It was sold out to that much.
I think that's why it always commanded a much higher price. It was so labor intensive to fool with it.
Oh, it's hard.
I mean, it's hard to tell how long it took to fill those 100 barrels of crushed peaches.
For every gallon of brandy we make, we use a bushel of peaches. Every gallon takes
For 1 gallon?
bushel. Apple brandy, same way. That's why people want it.
That's the coil that was in the cooler box, and some kid standing there holding it. I don't know who he is.
Who's that young boy?
They said he was that kid with you. The truck that they had there, little Chevy cattle truck, and on the back were the mason jars. Canada's running 2,000 half-gallon mason jars.
How many?
2,000. There was a bunch laying on the ground. We had to break every one of them. That's the kid again. We started the process of dumping out all these barrels, and as you can see, there's a yellow river going down the road right here.
Plastic barrels.
They're plastic barrels, and we tried to put axe holes in them, and you had to hit the barrel at the base, because if you hit it in the middle, the axe would bounce back and hit you in the head.
It just makes me sick looking at that. And you know those barrels, you had to get the right barrels. If you got a certain barrel that chemicals was in it, you couldn't use it.
Right.
Those barrels would absorb whatever chemical that was in those barrels, so you had to make sure you got the correct barrels to mash it in. We lost 50 barrels one time. Stanley, he had mashed some into some barrels and didn't know the chemicals in it. We started running it, we could taste it, we could smell it. We dumped the whole 50 barrels. You got to know what kind of barrels to use.
That's about what it looked like right before we finished dumping all the peaches out. That took a while. We were being dropped off about 2 miles from this thing to walk up the creek to check it, and like I said, you could hear the gas pump running. It's running the water And on the 30th day, I finally heard the prompt one, and I thought I was going to cry. I was so happy. There was three running the still. That's all of that.
All right. You all have seen some big stills. I had the opportunity to see the largest still in Virginia. This is the smallest. This was given to me by my next door neighbor in Amherst. She walked over that one afternoon and said, "You know what this is?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. It's a still." I said, "Where'd you get it?" She said, "We bought a cabin up on Indian Creek. Went up there, cleaned the cabin up. We found this in the floor, under the floor." I said, "Well, it's a still." She said, "You want it?" I said, "Yeah, I very much want it." I drilled a couple of holes in the coil so it was inactive, so I didn't have to get a permit to keep it. It's against the law to have any type of distilling apparatus. So I did a little checking around, and I found out.
There's a lot of small hole there. And you saw that music.
I found out there was an old man living in the cabin, and his story was, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but each night before he went to bed, he would run just enough for a drink. He'd probably get about an ounce of brandy out of it. But again, that's the smallest one that I have ever seen. But who made it did a good job. We'll talk about liquor just for a minute, about moonshine. When I first went to work there in Newport News, I had 6 stills located when I got there. All run by black folks. All of them were nasty operations. You didn't see any copper down there at all. All the condensers were truck or car radiators. Still a good chance of getting lead salts. Now, for those that don't know about lead salts, they'll kill you. They have an accumulative effect. You might drink it for years, and your body does not get rid of it. It just accumulates. Till it gets to the point, you take one more drink, and you're dead. We've had people, particularly down in the Tidewater area, that have died from lead salts. And I feel sure it came from drinking moonshine that was made with a truck or a car radiator. That's one thing you came back this way, you did not see. You saw copper. Ed and Cash had a clean outfit. Those stills over in Franklin County, copper. They knew what they were doing.
I got one there, galvanized.
Yep.
That's the one out.
Yep.
You know, and I asked the ABC and
Where it come from?
I asked the ABC and the feds when I started my legal operation about the metals to use. They don't care what you use. You can use galvanized. You can use whatever metals you want. That shocked me.
Yeah.
That shocked me.
All right, I don't have any more to really add. And if anybody's got any questions, now's the time to ask them. You know, ask anything you want. I'm not going to guarantee we're going to answer it, but you can ask it. You've got some experts here. Henry Law is as close to being an expert on moonshine as anybody I know. And he has agreed to listen to your question. I don't know whether he wants to answer them all or not. but he does know what he's talking about.
I think the statute of limitations has run out on most of them.
Well, yeah, I told Henry when he came down here, come on down here, we're not gonna arrest you.
I got a chill sitting here the whole time, all these officers around me. My God.
We had our opportunity over the years to arrest Henry. And
He's been at my dad's house several times. Both of them.
yes, ma'am.
Does anybody make Calvados around here?
I can't hear. You know I'm deaf.
Okay. Could you tell him, Mr. Law, does anybody make Calvados apple brandy around here?
Calvados?
Yeah, Calvados.
Never heard of it. We make apple brandy. You know, we use wine sap, Rambo, those apples. If it's an apple, brandy can be made with it. It can have to be made with it. Well, some apples you get a better turnout. We always like to stick with the wine sap apples. You got a better turnout. Yeah, you got a better turnout. Sweet apples you want to use.
Brown and the juice, like you buy at the store, but it ain't pasteurized. That's what made brandy. You made good brandy. You didn't make it like you see on TV, moonshiner cutting apples up in the barrel. That ain't making brandy. That's pug brandy, you call it. It ain't nothing like a real brandy.
You know, it takes a
Not
long
that,
time.
not that any of you all, I'm sure, would venture out there to making the liquor. But if I was of a mind to do so, now's the time to do it. Because, and I'm being critical of Virginia ABC. I would say,
I don't know what you should tell anybody that, because it took me almost 40 years to get a part.
well, I would say that probably 80% of the agents today wouldn't know a still if it fell in one. And that's a shame. Because at one time, Virginia ABC was noted all over the country as a top law enforcement agency. It's not that way anymore.
Like Franklin County, there's no task force in Franklin County now. It used to be a task force. It stayed right on us.
Oh,
There is
yeah.
none now.
Yeah, when I went to Richmond and made director, I said, I'm not real happy with what's going on in Franklin County. At that time, we had 3 agents down there. And yeah, they got a lot of steals. They cut up a lot of steals. They didn't catch a whole lot of people. You know, a steal like Henry and them put up, you can find them.
Yeah.
Because you have to leave a lot of traffic going to them.
Yeah.
It's not like these old mountain boys up here where you can't find a path, and that's. I had the opportunity to see this. The largest still in Virginia. This is the smallest. This was given to me by my next door neighbor in Amherst. She walked over that one afternoon and said, "You know what this is?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. It's a steal." I said, "Where'd you get it?" She said, "We bought a cabin up on Indian Creek. Went up there, cleaned the cabin up. We found this in the floor, under the floor." I said, "Well, it's a steal." She said, "You want it?" I said, "Yeah, I very much want it." I drilled a couple of holes in the coil so it was inactive, so I didn't have to get a permit to keep it. It's against the law to have any type of distilling apparatus. So I did a little checking around and I found out.
There's a little small hole there. And we just saw that music.
I found out it was an old man living in the cabin, and his story was, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but each night before he went to bed, he would run just enough for a drink. He'd probably get about an ounce of brandy out of it. But again, that's the smallest one that I have ever seen. Over who made it did a good job. We'll talk about liquor just for a minute. About moonshine. When I first went to work there in Newport News, I had 6 stills located when I got there. All run by black folks. All of them were nasty operations. You didn't see any copper down there at all. All the condensers were truck or car radiators. Still a good chance of getting lead salts. Now, for those that don't know about lead salts, they'll kill you. They have an accumulative effect. You might drink it for years, and your body does not get rid of it. It just accumulates, till it gets to the point you take one more drink and you're dead. We've had people, particularly down in the Tidewater area, that have died from lead salts. And I feel sure it came from drinking moonshine that was made with a truck or a car radiator. That's one thing you came back this way, you did not see. You saw copper. Ed and Cash had a clean outfit. Those stills over in Franklin County, copper. They knew what they were doing.
I got one there that's galvanized.
Yeah.
That's the one I was.
Yep.
You know, and I asked the ABC and
Where it come from?
I asked the ABC and the feds when I started my legal operation about the metals to use. They don't care what you use. You can use galvanized. You can use whatever metals you want. That shocked me.
Yeah.
That shocked me.
All right, I don't have any more to really add. And if anybody's got any questions, now's the time to ask them. You know, ask anything you want. I'm not going to guarantee we're going to answer it, but you can ask it. You've got some experts here. In the law is as close to being an expert on moonshine as anybody I know. And he has agreed to listen to your question. I don't know whether he wants to answer them all or not, but he does know what he's talking about.
I think the statute of limitations has run out on most of them.
Well, yeah, I told Henry when he came down here, come on down here, we're not going to arrest you.
I got a chill sitting here the whole time, all these officers around me. My God.
We had our opportunity over the years to arrest Henry. And
He's been at my dad's house several times. Both of them.
yes, ma'am.
Does anybody make Calvados around here?
I can't hear. You know I'm deaf.
Okay. Could you tell him, Mr. Law, does anybody make Calvados apple brandy around here?
Calvados?
Yeah, Calvados.
Never heard of it. We make apple brandy. You know, we use wine sap, Rambo, those apples. If it's an apple, brandy can be made with it. It can be made with it. Well, some apples you get a better turnout. We always like to stick with the wine sap apples. You got a better turnout. Yeah, you got a better turnout. Sweet apples you want to use.
Juice, like about a store, but it's pasteurized. That's what made brandy. You made good brandy. You didn't make it like you see on TV, moonshine, cutting apples up in the barrel. That ain't making brandy. That's pub brandy, you call it. It ain't nothing like a real brandy.
It takes a long time.
Not that any of you all, I'm sure, would venture out there to making the liquor. But if I was of a mind to do so, now's the time to do it. Because, and I'm being critical of Virginia ABC. I would say.
I don't know what you should tell anybody that, because it took me almost 40 years to get a bar.
Well, I would say that probably 80% of the agents today wouldn't know a still if they fell in one. And that's a shame. Because at one time Virginia ABC was noted all over the country as a top law enforcement agency. It's not that way anymore.
Like Franklin County, there's no task force in Franklin County now. It used to be a task force that stayed right on us. There is none now.
Yeah, when I went to Richmond and made director, I said, I'm not real happy with what's going on in Franklin County. At that time, we had 3 agents down there. And yeah, they got a lot of steals. They cut up a lot of steals. They didn't catch a whole lot of people. You know, a steal like Henry and them put up, you can find them.
Yeah.
Because you have to leave a lot of traffic going to them.
Yeah.
It's not like these old mountain boys up here where you can't find a path. That sort of thing, because they're running a small steel.
Our outfit would stretch from the length of this building right here. There would be two guys working it.
Yeah.
And then we'd have 3 or 4 of them set up all on the counter.
And I said, hey, we got to make some changes here, or we'll never put an end to the Franklin County moonshine. I said, it's reasons behind that. You got to take the profit out of it. As long as there's money being made in it, it's going to continue to be made. So how do you take the profit out? You put them not in state court. And I'm going to be critical of state court. Because in state court up there, slapped them on the wrist. If it gave them any time, I've seen them give them 6 months in jail. Instead of going to jail, they put them on work release and they go and work on the judge's farm. I know it happened.
I seen Dad sell 300 cases of liquor on Friday before he went back to jail.
Yeah.
He was on work release.
Yeah.
He said on Friday he sold 300 cases before he went back in.
Well, if he's on work release, he went down and worked at the warehouse and sold sugar down there to the moonshiners.
But you got to keep in mind too, it was a tax thing.
Oh yeah.
It was a tax.
All the judges too. I know a black
Oh,
guy
yeah.
in Amherst County. He got me 6 months after I was tried. He said, boy, we're trying, Judge Quinnsbury pulled in. He said, we're trying to get that sugar, that car right out.
We had an operation in there. It wasn't the last operation because I retired when we had the last one. But we had a pretty successful operation. And I was staying down at Collinsville at Dutch Inn.
I remember that.
I get a call from the supervisor up there, says, Circuit Court Judge wants to see you in his office. I said, all right. So I go up to Franklin County. I go in the judge's office. There's the sheriff, Quinn Overton, sitting there with a big smile on his face. My supervisor sitting there with a big smile on his face. And the judge, Circuit Court Judge. Well, he lit into me and he called me everything in the book. He said, you have embarrassed the good people of Franklin County. You made it look like that this is a lawless county. And he on and on and on he went. I finally got tired of hearing it. I said, Judge, let me tell you something. You are in the best position of anybody I know to do something about moonshining in Franklin County, but you refuse to do it. I said, we bring them in here with good charges, and if you dismiss everyone that you think you can, and the ones that you convict you don't do anything with. So they're right back into business. I got up and walked out. Now, I don't know, Henry may or may not agree, and I don't really care with what I'm saying. Well, I'm telling you my perspective of it. And later on, we said, well, we're going to take this on to federal court. So they had another operation up there after I retired. They spent hours and hours and hours on it. And they brought federal charges. As a result of federal charges, the moonshiners lost a lot of money. Their property was seized. They had to buy it back if they wanted it. The main supplier, Helms's warehouse, put the IRS on him. He committed suicide.
He arrested my dad. He just finished pulling 2 years in federal prison. He came out. He took him to grand jury. Tried to get him to talk. He wouldn't talk, so they charged him with 2 counts of perjury.
Yeah.
To try to put him back in jail. And
Yeah.
he beat the case, but he spent $25,000 for attorney fees.
Right.
People look at you and say, well, Amos beat the case, but he lost $25,000 anyway you add it up.
Right.
And he just finished pulling 2 years. I mean, sometimes they go a little overboard. I have to say that.
Well, it took the profit. It took the profit out of it. But I was real happy to see Henry Law go legal, and I wish him the very best.
I tell you, John, there's not as much money in it.
And we just do it. Well, I know,
I'm just picking.
Virginia's not going to let you make it so much money.
That's true.
ABC board's not going to let you make it so much money. I guarantee it.
You said in
How did you illegal to...
I can't hear you.
I always want to do it. I always want, when you're making liquor stuff, you want to go legal. You want to do legal stuff. But even in a poor county, there's not money to be made, families to be fed. You just do it to try to make a little money for your family. Maybe get the possibility to get them in college, something you never got to do. Your lifetime goal is not to just stay in the liquor business and go to jail all your life. You just do it to try to feed your family. And that's what everybody tries to do in most moonshiners. And I always want to, get out of the illegal business. And once you get a felony against you, it's hard as hell. So you have to try to get your rights back. We finally got our rights back, got our gun rights back. And funny thing about your gun rights is the state recognizes, but the federal government doesn't.
Yeah.
So you got a gun, and the state gives you license, you can have it. Feds come in and say no, they can lock you up for it. And we had all these formulas and generations of experience behind us. And who has that? Franklin County has got some people that can make some liquor. Some of the best. But still, at the same time, the ironic thing about it is, I've sent in formulas to the state, and and the formulas has got to be exactly the way they lay them out. Like I had one formula for brandy, and because I put a little bit of rye and a little bit of malt in it, the state of Virginia says you can't call that peach brandy. Well, you should saw my father when I told him that. He'd say, what the hell are they talking about?
Henry, how many people in Franklin now have a legal license besides yourself?
It's just 3 of us. Actually, 2 Franklin County. Quillen, and there's some doctor got on him. He's not from around our area.
Okay.
Yeah, but Quillen knows what he's doing. I know what I'm doing. We got the formulas, we got the recipes. We know how to. Like when I set my steel place up, I built every single thing that's in that steel place. And not Richmond, but the feds kept wanting to know the serial numbers on my steels and equipment. I kept writing back, there is no serial numbers. They send back, we want serial numbers. I built the steels, I didn't buy them. They couldn't comprehend that. We built every single thing that we got, thumpers, steels.
Did you have to end up putting a seal number on it?
I told them I'll stamp a number on it if I want to, take something right on it, but I didn't hear any more from them. So mine's no numbers on it.
So when this pandemic is over, will you be getting insurance of your distillery?
Well, possibly. I've taken a lot of my liquor. The state lifted and the government lifted the tax on it so we could make hand sanitizer. I made over 1,000 bottles and gave away to first responders and all. And I don't know how that's going to come down as far as them wanting to, did you make this much? I mean, if you spill a half a gallon, they want to know you spilled that half a gallon. They want to know where it went. They look at the grains that you used in whole 9 yards.
How much federal tax do you have to pay now on every gallon you make?
When I ran the numbers for mine, it was $13.50 a proof gallon. But right when I started, they dropped it to $2.70 on experimental things to make the small craft, if it was a certain size, small craft distillers more profitable. And thank God it did when this pandemic hit. It really helped us a lot. But as far as mine, I don't have a store. You can have a store, and you can sell anything that you got as far as a formula, if you got a formula for it. You can sell it right out of that store.
Like you speaking like Robert Bondwick's got.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you subcontracting like with a stake, more or less. You can't sell anybody else's liquor, but you can sell yours. Well, you know, you got to be there at a store to run it. You got to have somebody running stores. What, people come out on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays maybe and want to look around. So I decided against it, and it really took me off because all they kept telling me was, you need a store, you need a store. Well, you know, we got 400 stores in the state,
Yeah.
but they don't want to put our stuff in the state. You know, they want the big dogs got the shelf space, I guess you could say.
How many stores do you have your product in now?
They started me off with no stores. They put me in what they call a catalog. Who's ever heard of a catalog? About to look at a damn catalog. But that's what it started out, a catalog. A few months passed by, they finally gave me 10 stores. Another thing they did, they had me haul 4 boxes, 12 bottles a box, 4 boxes, 3.5 hours to Richmond to put in a catalog for the catalog. Now if that's not a slap in the face, how can you make money when you spend a whole day to haul 4 little boxes to Richmond? You know, it's almost like, I don't know, they make it tough on us. They make it tough on the distillers. But, you know, it's illegal. I don't have to worry about these guys coming to get me. Lock me up. Do you have a question, anybody?
How do you feel about the fact that, and I might be wrong, but you can make a certain amount of wine or a certain amount of beer as an individual, and
But
that's
you
still
can't.
taxed too, but then,
You can't distill, but you can't distill.
right, but I mean, the ABC, it's clear that the moonshine is nothing but the tax. That's why they want to regulate and control it. But yet, they won't let you make a gallon for your own use, but you can make, was it 5 gallons of beer or 5 gallons of wine? or
That's what
something?
John was talking about earlier, the guy with that coffee. You know, kept having the coffee for it. That's what we call it. When you got it mashed in, it's beer. But when you use that distilling equipment, once you throw it in that distilling equipment in there, now you manufacture, you can't make any. A lot of people say, well, you know, we can make a certain amount. You can't do it. You make a little bit of wine, you make a little bit of beer. But anything that distilling equipment like that there, it's illegal. You go to jail.
But you like to match it to you.
Yeah. Well, not really. I mean, I see that on that, you know, when you got all that equipment in there, that mash is there and that burner's there, you don't have to strike a match, believe you me. It's there. They come in, you're going to jail. But now we beat several cases by not having all the equipment there to run liquor. You got to have that still, you got to have your thumpers, you got to have your worms, you got to have the water source like they've been talking about. A lot of times if we thought the law was coming, we've taken our caps and hid them out in the woods or the pump. Law would come in and they'd arrest the guys and charge them for manufacturing. Well, when you go to court, our first offense is, how can we manufacture? There's no cap
Well,
there.
the only thing he could charge you with is possession of distilling apparatus.
Right, but a lot of them would mess up and charge you for manufacturing.
Yeah.
Once they did that, we'd beat the case.
Well, that's the difference between a felon and a misdemeanor.
Yeah, exactly. But they couldn't charge you for manufacturing